grew up here in Arizona, fifth generation Arizonan, and mostly in Flagstaff and Phoenix, but was born in Flagstaff and spent several years there, and then we moved down to Phoenix for a short spell and lived with my grandmother. When my dad took a little vacation, we like to say, and had to go to jail. My mom has always been one of my strongest role models. She was a very young mom. She had me when she was 19. And then to go through what she went through with my dad, and being then a single mom with an incarcerated husband, it had to have been incredibly hard for her. I remember coming home from school in third grade, and the FBI was boxing up our entire house, and my mom was sitting at the bottom of the stairs crying. We went from having this 3,500 square foot home in Flagstaff and all the trappings of a, kind of perfect life to living in a travel trailer. And she had to put herself back through school and clean houses and wait tables. And I remember her coming home some nights crying because she would have had a table that gave her a couple bucks for a tip, and she didn't have enough money to get dinner that night. So she'd bring home a leftover pizza from the restaurant. Or being in line with her at the grocery store back in the days when food stamps were the coupons that you had to tear out, and seeing the looks from other people, or you could hear them sigh when we had to separate our groceries and stuff, and it was going to take her longer to check out than what they were wanting to experience. And I can't imagine what that took, the internal strength that she had to have to be able to persevere and to know that she could create a better life for my sister and I. But that's what she did. And she woke up each and every day with that decision to do that. And I know I wouldn't be the person I am today if it weren't for her. And I'm just really grateful for that and what that taught me. And I needed that because the example that I had from my dad was decidedly different. My father is a complex individual. He was one of the most charismatic folks in my life and influence on my life. At the same time, his own biggest hurdle, and someone who would time and time again over the course of my childhood make the wrong decisions and ultimately suffer the consequences for those. And I think as a young child, to realize that so early on, it changes who you are as a person. It makes you grow up a little bit faster, and you realize that the world isn't the perfect place that maybe you thought it was. It's not all Care Bears, rainbows, and unicorns. I was incredibly close with my grandmother, his mother. She allowed him to move in with her after my parents divorced and he got out of jail. And so I lived with my grandmother and him for most of my childhood. She was one of my best friends. I would wake up early in the morning to do my paper route, and I would hear her already having dragged in the piles of papers, and you'd hear that sound of the thud of the papers as she was folding them for me, so that when I would wake up, everything was folded and ready to be delivered, because she wanted me to be able to sleep that much longer. And so having someone like that was always there for you, you're naturally going to be protective and there for them, particularly as they age. My grandmother, the last time I spoke to her on the phone was in 2016, and I wouldn't know then that was the last time I would speak to her, but it was. And as the years went on from that point forward, I started to realize that my dad's stories weren't making sense. And my concern was that he had her somewhere like an apartment where he was not taking great care of her and taking her retirement and Social Security money to live on. So finally in 2019, after we had done several wellness checks with the police, a report through Adult Protective Services, all of which they wrote off as my sister and I being, antagonistic against my dad. And finally, I went onto Social Security's website, did an anonymous tip, and within 2 weeks, the investigators were at his 14,000 square foot home. At some point, she had passed away. We don't know for sure if that was from natural causes, and decided to put her in a hermetically sealed body bag and hide her in the back of one of his 7 garages. All because he wanted to have that $6,000 a month from her retirement and Social Security. So he robbed her and her family of being able to say goodbye, of having the dignity of a proper burial. And it also then fueled my decision to cooperate with the prosecution and to ensure that he paid a price for what he did to her. When did I realize I was gay? Well, and I do like to say gay presenting, because I was gay presenting pretty much from the time I was born, when I look back at pictures. And I don't know if it was my mom's decision to dress me in the way she did, but man, I loved a little suit. And most little boys don't. So I just knew at a very early age, for me, the scariest part of school was always the school bus ride. And I can still remember in 7th grade waiting for the school bus, and I'd hear the squeal of the brakes as it was rounding the corner, and I just was like, all right, today's gonna be different. I would do my mental checklist. I had my best penny loafers on, my best sweater vest, you know how most teenage boys dress. And, you know, thinking that this was my hair was perfect, always hairsprayed to the gods, and I would board the bus. And I would look at the seat selection and try to find the one that I thought would be the safest for me. But that next stop, I would always know who was going to be getting on the bus. And I would see him way before he actually boarded the bus. But he was one of the meanest kids in our school and also one of the biggest. And he would board the bus and he would look left and right like he was trying to find a seat, but I knew he was coming to sit next to me because that's what he did every day. He would try not to make eye contact with him, and inevitably he would slam his body against mine so that I would be crushed into the bus wall and say, "Good morning, faggot." I would just try to be as small and quiet as I could to not draw more attention from him, because as the bus rambled on to the next stop, I knew that another character from my school would be boarding the bus, and her name was Rhoton Patel. Raina was also one of the scariest kids in school. She had the bangs, you know, the hairsprayed bangs, so I would see the bangs as she was boarding the bus, and he was scared of Raina. And Raina would come and sit next to me and ensure that I was protected. Now, I don't know if Raina fully understood the role that she played in my life, but she was one of the only kids that would talk to me, that knew me, not just as the scared little gay boy on the bus. And I think that lesson at an early age taught me what it means to have someone stand up for you. You know, we all in our lives, I think most of us anyway, have had moments where we need someone to stand up for us. And I see that today in the youth at 1 in 10, particularly our trans youth, that it's such a battle for many of them to even reconcile with who they are, and then to be confronted by media and politicians and people in such horrible ways. It takes a lot more than me. It takes an organization like 1 in 10. It takes fierce leaders like Governor Hobbs. It takes other organizations like One Community to stand up and be the Rhoton Patels to all of our queer youth so that they know they're not alone. Because at the end of the day, if we're really going to make a difference in someone's life, we have to do that as early as possible. And being someone who grew up in the state and had such a challenge with who I was and coming out, I wanted to be part of that support. I wanted to be that Rhoton Patel or superhero for these youth by helping an organization that does this work, that creates those safe spaces that are so badly needed. I didn't know in 2015 how bad we would need them in 2024, but unfortunately we need them now more than ever. So in 2015, I made that jump and came to 1 in 10 as their first development director. When 1 in 10 worked with Spark Community Schools last year to open our junior high, I was so excited.
Frankly, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade were some of the hardest years for me. I had changed schools every single school year. Today, if I were in junior high, I would love to be able to live my full, authentic self.
As the CEO of 1 in 10, an advocacy group for the LGBTQ+ youth, his goal is to offer a safe space for middle school students, one he never had.
When the press release went out that we were going to open the school, we had 47 different news outlets that covered it, including the Associated Press, local, national, international news. Much of it was positive, but a lot of it was also very negative. Headlines that said things like, LGBTQ organization that teaches kids how to get sex changes opens junior high. We don't do that. We work with parents and young people to connect them with resources to be able to live their lives in the way that they want to. And at the end of the day, we just create a safe place for youth to find community. And in this case, we're creating a safe place for them to go to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Some of the hardest grades for everybody, but add to that a queer identity. And in today's public schools, unfortunately, there's not a safe space for gay kids. So that's what we set out to do. I wish I could say that everything that I did day in and day out is the reason we've grown so much. It's not. It's because of the young people that we serve and that word of mouth that they're telling their other friends that are like, hey, come to these programs and be a part of this community. And in turn, individuals then invest by making donations. And it's a beautiful thing. But to have an organization that was founded in 1993 in Phoenix, Arizona, of all places, that serves LGBTQ youth, I think it's pretty phenomenal. And we get calls from all over the country asking, where is there a 1 in 10 by me? There's not one yet, but hopefully someday. And we're able to connect them with other orgs that are doing great work for youth, but it really makes me see the need for programs like 1 in 10, really across our country.
You know us gays, we like a little entrance. Hope it didn't make me look too gay.
This award, it means a lot. For me, it means that scared little boy boarding that bus in 7th grade doesn't have to be so scared anymore. It means that it really does pay off to just be yourself. And at the end of the day, by doing that, you can find happiness and a career that involves really celebrating who you are. So I want to say thank you to One Community for this award. Thank you to Angela Huey for her friendship and support over the years. I'm just so proud to be the One Community Agent Awardee this year.